So I just got done mowing the lawn a second ago, and I guess when mowing the lawn, I had some thoughts about strength and conditioning, which maybe that's concerning that that's occupying my time when I'm mowing the lawn. Whatever. So I decided to make this video for everyone here. And it has to do with exercise, not necessarily selection, but exercise volume, and specifically the number of sets and reps and amount of time, I should say, spent on a given exercise relative to the other exercises in a program. So, what I mean by that is, I think moral of the story is too many people do too many different exercises in their training in hopes of somehow the sheer volume of exercises, that is, weightlifting exercises, is going to somehow yield some magical result. And that's almost counterintuitive to the logic itself when it comes to programming. So let me explain. A lot of times when you see an exercise program, you'll see something like a power lift, a lift that is for power, maybe a trap bar jump, a hang clean. You'll see a lift that is primarily for strength. And then we have all these accessory lifts. And sometimes in these accessory lifts, we get extreme redundancy, meaning it's kind of the same thing as a major lift, but you're kind of doing the exercise just because, and there really might not be a purpose for it. So an example of a program that someone might see or do or whatever, you've probably encountered yourself is you have whatever warm-up, maybe some plyometrics before. All that's fine and dandy. I love a wide variety of plyometrics. We can do that on another video as to why I enjoy that so much. But when it comes to the actual training portion, people often select maybe like a power exercise, a trap bar lift, and they might do that for 3 sets of whatever, 5 sets of 3 reps, something like that. Then a primary lift, and they'll do maybe 4 sets of 3 to 5 reps. And then they'll have like accessory lifts. So maybe that primary lift is a squat, and the accessory lift is like a split squat, or the accessory lift is a glute hip bridge, or whatever. And then after that, they have another accessory where it's like a goblet squat. And then they have another accessory that's like a TKE, terminal knee extension, or sled push. And by the time you amass all that volume, you've had an extreme amount of redundancy in terms of muscles being worked. And I think at the end of the day, we kind of forget why we're programming things when you see a program that's set up like that, because in of itself, it has some irony to it, because essentially you're selecting a primary lift, let's say a back squat, because it trains the squatting pattern, the glutes, and the quads in a specific motion. Fair enough. Now that's probably the same reason why a goblet squat is selected, and the same reason why a split squat is selected. So if we think that a back squat is going to be the best means to get the highest potency yield from a stimulus, it doesn't have to be a back squat, just for the sake of example, then why are we programming a lesser stimulating exercise later on in the workout versus removing those and applying that effort that we would otherwise apply there to the back squat for maybe more volume in terms of sets, reps, or intensity? So in the example that I gave you of the traditional exercise program that you see right, the power movement, and then you see like the primary lift, and then you have accessory lifts, again, maybe the goblet squat, and then you have another accessory lift, and it starts to become, I don't want to call it chaos, but lots of work. And instead of doing all those accessory lifts, what if we just did those primary lifts and just put forth the effort that we would put forth in the accessory into the primary lifts, assuming the accessory lifts are being redundant? Because at the end of the day, we have to respect the fact that in training, we don't always know where all the gains, the muscle adaptations, are always derived from. But more times than not, it's going to be from the major intensity in terms of weight, intensity in terms of effort or volume lifts. And it's going to be the primary lifts that you have selected that you deem most important or most significant. So you, when you write the program and you put a back squat as the primary strength lift, well, you by default are saying, I think the back squat is going to give me the highest yield of adaptation, and the reason why I'm selecting it to be first is because I want us to have the highest level of effort directed towards that. The issue comes up, well, if we could lift and perform exercises and get a lot of bang for our buck with the back squat, we're either A, the accessory work isn't yielding that much, or B, we're just kind of wasting energy on it because the amount of return we get is minimal. And I often think about that in terms of our training process, especially in the weight room. I think a lot of people probably do too many exercises because we derive a lot of our information from bodybuilding. A lot of the information has its origins set, especially in program structure, in terms of large muscles, the smaller muscles, to isolated muscles, which is kind of like a classic bodybuilding-like setup. Even powerlifting has some of its programming origins in that realm because you might be doing a similar cascading of significance in terms of the main lift, then maybe some accessories and some isolated work of the target muscle groups. But your goal as a power lifter is only to lift the most amount of weight as possible. It's not to be the best, quote unquote, athlete that occurs outside of the weight room. And so the more we understand these origins of program structure and design, the more we can understand what kind of biases are innately in them and whether or not that way we structure actually makes sense for the individuals we work with. And I would argue that if we're having 80 to 90% of the total adaptation occur on the front end of a lift, the plyos, the power, and the strength, then we should only program as if the accessory lifts only yield a 10% benefit. We shouldn't program as if the initial lifts provide 40% or 50% and the other half of the workout provides, again, another 50%. Because odds are, in my opinion, I don't think that would be the case. Just anecdotally, I've lifted people with just the front end of the lift, and I have seen no different in adaptation and gains, and sometimes actually more progress because we can load it a little more because we know we're not doing any additional stuff after than we would if we would to have divvied that up amongst a series of other exercises. Now, in my always an athlete team, if you're on that team, my online training team, you'll see I program like this quite a bit. There are some caveats here, and that is that if you have a primary lift that is maybe squat pattern dependent and it's working maybe more quads, I do understand the justification to place an exercise that maybe emphasizes another primary mover, such as your glutes, after that. Because essentially what you're saying is, I think the squat really works my quads really well, so I'm going to emphasize that. But I also think that the glutes are really important to work. Therefore, I will also have an emphasis working the glutes. It's more like when we get into this huge redundancy of exercise selection after those, because I've seen before in programming, after that, people will do like Bulgarian split squats and so on and so forth. And they'll do like kettlebell goblet squats. And then they'll do, I don't know, pick your 1,001 exercises. The programming justification tends to fall apart. Now, after those two primary lifts, I am a big fan of maybe doing something that is more isolated to maybe like a tendon aspect. We're doing a tempo eccentric, slow lowering. And that's where I'll often use my accessory stuff. It's not for the muscular adaptations for strength gains. It's maybe to target a specific quality that I deem most important, or not most important, but also important. It might not be something I even need to do during that workout. Because, for example, if it's just an isometric, I'm just happening to do it during my workout. By realistically, the amount of demand it places on my body, I could probably do it 3 hours later at home and do some sort of a split squat lunge hold, or I should say body weight lunge hold, or a knee extension isometric, and it wouldn't be too demanding to deal with. If we're talking about bodybuilding, that's very different because there's so many different muscles, and different muscles are isolated through different exercises, which is why when we see bodybuilding, we see a massive variety of exercises. And powerlifting, it's a little bit less, but it is specific to some structural demands associated with the bench, the squat, and the deadlift. And because there are 3 primary exercises associated with powerlifting, it makes sense that there might be, 6 to 8 exercises, 4 to 6 exercises maybe I should say, per major exercise, the squat, the bench, the deadlift, that you might emphasize. But again, you don't need doing those plyometrics, or at least not to the demands and the loading that an athlete might, because that's not even in the realm of your competition. So at the end of the day, I think we should probably front load our workouts a little bit more, higher intensity in terms of effort, in terms of maybe volume, not in terms of total reps, but maybe total sets. And we might be able to get more benefit out of our workouts, if not equal benefit, with less total demand, which in turn makes the workout more effective. Well, not more effective, more efficient, and probably in the long run more effective, because you have some, saving of energy that you can use elsewhere towards recovery or towards your next workout. So I just wanted to share that with you all, as I had some mowing the lawn thoughts today on this Friday. I'll probably put this up on a Saturday. So as I say Friday, you'll probably see this on a Saturday or whenever the heck you stumble across this video. As always, I appreciate you guys listening to these. And if you guys are curious and learning more from me, you can check out the Edge U. That's where I post a lot of my detailed scientific stuff. More of my coursework on there. Check it out. I appreciate you guys. Feel free to subscribe, share, and as always, thank you.